Mike Breen with a double bang on the first buzzer beater of Mikal Bridges' career. He finished with 13. Knicks a 114-113 win over Portland. Knicks finished their 5-game road trip Saturday night at Golden State. That game will be on ABC. Our nightcap last night on ESPN in Denver, Anthony Edwards had 29. T-Wolves won their 6th straight, beating the Nuggets by 20. Nuggets failed to lead at any point in a game for the 4th time this season. 2 of those came against Minnesota. You'll recall the Timberwolves eliminated them last year, so that matchup obviously doesn't favor the big fella. In Boston, the big fella was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points. Thunder statement win over the Celtics. Oklahoma City becomes the first team in the West to clinch a playoff spot. The Celtics shot an NBA record-tying 63 threes. They were just 5 of 27 from 3 in the second half. Bobby Marks gets up with us early here this morning, and I want to give all the love in the world to the Thunder today. They deserve it, and we'll get to them in a minute. But I think, Bobby, 63 threes, even by the Celtics standards, last night felt like it was an outlier, a statement. Is that a strategy you can win an NBA championship with?
No, it isn't. And I think when you looked at the scoreboard last night, certainly after the first quarter, when Boston had 27 out of their 30 points on threes and they were still trailing by 3, I knew they were in trouble there. And I think what you saw towards the end of this game, tired legs from perimeter jump shots, certainly at their best when they were attacking the rim last night. And this is kind of who they are. If they're making threes like they did in the first quarter and that first half, yes, they're going to be a tough out. But when they struggle, certainly in that second half, they are certainly beatable here, Greeny.
Yeah, they made 0 twos. To Bobby's point, 27 of those 30 points. The other 3 were from the foul line. They made 0 2-point field goals in the first quarter. So, okay, that's their side of this thing. Let's give the love to OKC. They don't get as much attention for all of the different reasons. They've been the best team in the West from the minute the first ball was thrown in the air. Their lead in the West is now 12 games over second place. What statement, if any, did they make as far as you're concerned last night with that win in Boston?
Yeah, I think the statement was that we're the deepest team in the NBA. We don't care. We're the youngest team in the NBA. We don't care if we don't have Jalen Williams or Alex Caruso. We are deep. And I think you saw last night, 8 players played 10-plus minutes. They threw a lot of different lineups at Boston last night. Greeny, in the second quarter, they started a lineup they hadn't started ever this season, and they still outscored this Boston team here. So the deepest team in the NBA, I think it shows you that they can wear you down throughout the course of the game here.
And SGA obviously continuing to make his case for MVP. It was his 60th consecutive game with at least 20 points. Okay, we're going to do something we've never done on the show. We're going to do a second edition of D's Notes.
Perfect.
Neek, come with me, because the first one is basketball, and let's talk about Nikola Jokic, all right? Jokic has won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. The reality is he's probably having his best season right now. He is currently top 3 in the league in points, rebounds, and assists per game. Since rebounds were first tracked in 1950, no one has ever finished a season top 3 in all of those categories. And so, Bobby, I'm starting to hear, it has felt to me forever like SGA is just an easy choice here. I'm starting to hear some rumblings about Jokic. In your mind, how would you size up this race for MVP?
Well, I think it's close, and thankfully I don't have a vote, and I would tell my voting members to wait until the end. I still give Shai Gilgeous-Alexander an edge, and I think there's no criteria, Greeny, for MVP, right? Is it most valuable player? Is it the most impactful player on their roster? I do think wins matter, and I think where Oklahoma City is right now in the standings, certainly in a comfortable lead in the Western Conference compared to where Denver was. I think you look at last night, that win in Boston, and I think you look at the loss by Denver getting blown out at home by Minnesota. I think you do have to take that into consideration. Is there voter fatigue? I don't think so, and I hope not, but I do have to give Shai just a teeny bit of an edge right now.
Yeah, with a 12-game lead in the West, it would be likely that Shea gets it, but I think it's hard to listen to Bobby say in the first portion of this that he has the deepest team and the most help, and then look at what Jokic is doing. Those stats that you point out is with an effective field goal percentage that's second all-time behind Steph Curry and the 73-win Warriors. So, that's incredibly impressive. The plus-minus numbers for Jokic are insane. They're plus 10 with him on the floor, minus 9 without him on the floor, which is the difference between this year's Cavs, which is the best team in the East, and the Pelicans, which are among the worst teams in the league. So I understand why SGA has the clear lead, but Jokic has been balling.
You use the words voter fatigue, Bobby, well, go ahead, Bobby, jump back in.
Yeah, no. I look back to, Nick, you make a great point there. Back in 2002, when I was with the Nets, we had Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd deserved to be the MVP because of the impact he had on his roster, similar to what you see with Nikola Jokic. And Jason Kidd didn't win MVP. Tim Duncan did in San Antonio, certainly had a better record than us in New Jersey here. So I do think voters look at the record impact there. Should they? I don't know. As I said, there's no criteria as far as how the voters think about doing this.
We got to get Bobby a vote because I don't like that he doesn't have.
Well, I was a voter. I was a voter, and I take the V in most valuable player very seriously. I do think MVP matters, and I try very hard when I was voting to avoid voter fatigue because I'm the first one who complains that LeBron James didn't win this award enough times and Michael Jordan didn't win this award enough times because it becomes about the narrative. Well, it's Charles's turn. It's Karl Malone's turn. Not that they weren't great players, but Michael Jordan was the best player in the league. He didn't win MVP as many times as he should. That said, a 12-game lead, Meek. I mean, he's the best player on by far the best team.
And I would say it's also a lot easier to watch an OKC game and see the obvious MVP characteristics. Whereas when you watch Jokic's games, it reminds me a bit of watching prestige television. I can't be on my phone or else it feels like it's boring. Right. But if I'm locked in, I'm like, oh, I remember that from there. Yeah. That was 3 episodes ago. And you end up feeling like, damn, this Jokic guy's really impressive. I know it sounds silly, but it feels that way.
Bobby jumped in for us last second here. Thanks a million, Bob. Enjoy. Mike Breen with a double bang on the first buzzer beater of Mikal Bridges' career. He finished with 13. Knicks a 114-113 win over Portland. Knicks finished their 5-game road trip Saturday night at Golden State. That game will be on ABC. Our nightcap last night on ESPN in Denver, Anthony Edwards had 29. T-Wolves won their 6th straight, beating the Nuggets by 20. Nuggets failed to lead at any point in a game for the 4th time this season. 2 of those came against Minnesota. You'll recall the Timberwolves eliminated them last year, so that matchup obviously doesn't favor the big fella. In Boston, the big fella was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points. Thunder statement win over the Celtics. Oklahoma City becomes the first team in the West to clinch a playoff spot. The Celtics shot an NBA record-tying 63 threes. They were just 5 of 27 from 3 in the second half. Bobby Marks gets up with us early here this morning, and I want to give all the love in the world to the Thunder today. They deserve it, and we'll get to them in a minute. But I think, Bobby, 63 threes, even by the Celtics standards, last night felt like it was an outlier, a statement. Is that a strategy you can win an NBA championship with?
No, it isn't. And I think when you looked at the scoreboard last night, certainly after the first quarter, when Boston had 27 out of the 30 points on threes and they were still trailing by 3, I knew they were in